What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and in today's episode of the fighting game tutorial series, we are going to finish converting the super and special camera from blueprints to code. So in the previous two episodes, we did convert the logic from blueprints to code for the camera itself, but there's a few other things we need to update, such as the animation blueprint, where we are using the special camera, and also a place in the camera code class itself to reference that special camera. So we're going to convert both these things today, and at the end of this episode, all of our cameras will be fully converted to code, and we will be looking wonderful. Before we hop into this episode, if you want to get caught up in this series, you can check out everything we've done from hitboxes, online multiplayer, controllers, and a lot more. I'll link that in the top right corner right here. Alternatively, if you only care about cameras and fighting game cameras in C++, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to watch the whole series to do this. I do recommend you watch the first episode where we set up the super camera though, as you are going to need the blueprint logic so that you can reference it when converting it to code. So I will link you to that episode right here in the top right corner. With those things out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. So, this is a code and blueprint tutorial series, but since we're converting from blueprints to code, all of our new logic is going to be in code today. And then we'll be fixing up some blueprint logic that had broken when doing some of these conversions in the previous episode. Now first things first, I actually just want to try and play the game, and this will lead us to some errors. These are the errors I was talking about from the conversions in the previous episode, and they're going to be in our animation blueprints. If you have used your super move or super camera or special camera in a different blueprint or different code class, then you might have more errors. So either way, we're going to want to solve them. They should be very easy to solve, but I'm going to allow the editor to take me to the error. So you see I have 4 errors in the message log for my animation blueprint, so we can go to them one at a time. The first error here is somewhere that we are calling swap to victory camera view on our super camera reference. Now in the previous episode, we made this function, swap to victory camera view, but we just called it swap to victory view. So if we go to our base special camera.cpp here, you'll see that we have this swap to victory view function. It is not named exactly the same as it was here. So even though the super camera reference and the super camera in general is a child of the code class, we call it base special camera now, this will still work because at the end of the day, this super camera reference in our NMBP, if we go to where we construct the data in the NMBP, which is right here, event blueprint begin play, you'll see that we search the world for cameras, find the first one, set it as the reference, and we also spawn the special camera here. This has automatically been converted from super camera to base special camera BP because we renamed it, and thus this reference is still valid. We should probably rename it now. It's not really required that we do this, but let's just call it special camera reference to be consistent. So this will still have everything we need, but we don't actually have this function anymore. So this is in our get ready for next round and notify. So this is when the characters have finished their animation for getting up after being defeated or after celebrating a victory of a round. If this was the final round that we had won, meaning that a character had won the match, we were swapping the camera to that victory view so that we could get a special victory animation. So we just need to call this function right here. We don't have the ability to call this function in blueprints the way we set it up in code, so we need to go to our base special camera.h, go to our swap to super view and swap to victory view functions, and make them u function. And specifically, we need to make them blueprint callable. We do this for both of our functions, so we can just call them both in the blueprint when needed. So make them both blueprint callable, and we can relaunch after that. So now we're back in the editor. We can go back to our animation blueprint. So for me that is mutant animBP root motion, but whatever your animBPs are will work. And so now we have to call this swap to victory view function. So if we drag off of special camera reference, swap to victory view. Now remember, this is the same as the blueprint function. We just converted it to code, cleaned it up a little bit. So we still want to do everything the same we were doing in here. So we want to connect it like this, and we want to pass in the other player because that's what we were doing in this logic previously. At this point, we can compile. We should get rid of at least one error here. And we got rid of quite a few. So now we have to go to the next one, which is a super camera view. So if we scroll over, this is the anim notify for starting super transition, which means we are entering the animation for our super move. And so when we did this, we were doing a bunch of logic in here, some of which included swapping to the super camera view as we would expect. We're going to do the same thing in here. we want to delete this node and drag off special camera reference and type in swap to super view. Again, we're doing everything the same as it was because we're just converting it. We don't want to change any logic, so we're still going to pass in what was passing the character before, which is the character reference of the animation blueprint. Basically the owner of the anim BP. And then we can compile and save. And now we see our mutant is working, so our anim BP is actually working again. At this point, we want to go into our camera, our regular camera. So cameras, base camera BP. And we need to convert these two events. These were the final two events in the event graph that hadn't been converted from blueprints to code. And the reason was we didn't have our special camera in code yet, so it was easier to leave these in the blueprint. Now we have the logic for the special camera in code, so we can move this logic to the regular camera, or base camera's code class. So we had freeze camera and resume camera, which are already functions in base camera CPP. You can see I'm already here. So if I scroll down, you see we have freeze camera and resume camera, and we already started filling out resume camera, but I'm gonna make sure we finalize both these functions today. So first things first, we need to be able to spawn a special camera in here and use it for some things. Regardless of what they are, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to swap to that camera with a certain field of view for a specified amount of time. So after we spawn it, we set this temp camera variable we have to the result, and we change the field of view. So if we want to mimic this directly, we are going to need a variable. So if we go to basecamera.h, we can make a new variable. So the special camera that is created and used when freezing and resuming this camera. We're going to make this a U property of edit anywhere, blueprint read write. That way we can see it and access it in the blueprint if we want. And we're going to make a base special camera pointer, and we'll just call it special camera instead of temp camera. Now when we do this, we won't have access to this type because we'd never included it in here. We didn't have this file before. So if we go up to the top above the generated.h include, pound include, base special camera.h. When we do this, this type will be resolved. Now if we go to basecamera.cpp, we can go ahead and spawn this actor. So get world, spawn actor, and we need to pass in the type, which is a base special camera. And for the parameters, we can pass it get actor location, get actor rotation. Because in here, all we're doing is taking the actor's transform of this camera and passing it in. So we don't have to change anything. We can just use the actor location and rotation of the camera. Now, we actually set the variable after setting the field of view, but I'm just going to set it right here because it makes more sense to me. So special camera equals this line. Then we want to set the camera components field of view. So special camera get camera component set field of view. And we're going to pass in 75.0f. This is a hard-coded value. That must have looked good at the time. We should make this a configurable variable, and we will do that. But for now, just copying that directly. Then we're setting the variable, which we've already done. And then we're calling set view target with blend on player controller index 0. So we were already doing this in resume camera. I copied that part over. And we're going to do it again. It's going to be a little bit different this time, but let's start setting it up. So if first player controller index 0 exists. So we're going to get the first player controller, or the main player controller. This is essentially player 1. If a player controller pointer default player controller equals u gameplay statics get player controller, and we're going to pass in get world as the context and index 0 for the player controller to look for. Then in here we can call default player controller set view target with blend. But instead of this, we're going to be passing in our special camera. So player controller 0 target, new view target is the special camera. We passed in a blend time of 0.4 specifically because it looked good. All the other values are default. but you can change this blend time if you want. To change it, simply add a comma after special camera, and you can pass in 0.4f because it defaults to 0.0f. So this just gives it a little bit of time to change, which makes it look better in most cases. Once you've done this, you can remove everything that is in the freeze camera event. We've successfully copied it over. Of course, this is only for the blueprint. Keep the one we just made in code. So first thing we're doing here is setting view target blend back to itself, or this camera, which we actually already copied over in a previous episode, but there is one thing we missed. So the blend time here was set to 0.3. We should go ahead and mimic that. So in resume camera, we are getting our default player controller and then setting view target with blend, and we're passing in this, but we also want to pass in 0.3f. So that's this part taken care of. Then we had a delay before destroying the camera, and that delay matched the blend time. That way the blend time could complete before destroying this actor. So we can do this slightly differently in the code. If we go to our base camera.h, we can make a function below resume camera, destroy the special camera created for freezing and resuming this camera. Void destroy special camera. So we have this function. We're going to need an F timer handle as well. So the timer handle for destroying the special camera created by this class. F timer handle special camera timer handle. Now if we go to base camera.cpp, go back to resume camera, after setting the view target with blend here, we can get world, get timer manager, dot set timer. In here you have to pass in the function you want to go to. It is a static function, so we're going to type a base camera destroy special camera. And before this, we need to use the timer handle. So special camera timer handle. Then we need the object that we're calling it on, which is going to be this, because it's this camera. Then we need the time, which we should go ahead and use that variable that I was mentioning before about blend times, but it's going to be 0.3f, because that's what we were using for the delay here. And the last parameter is if we want to repeat this or not. If the timer is going to continue every time it completes, should it restart? We don't want that, so I'm going to set it to false. Then we want to make our new function, void a base camera, destroy special camera. So lastly, we need to copy these nodes. So we're checking for validity on the special camera, then if it's valid, we're destroying it. So converting this, we were checking to see if special camera was valid, which is perfectly fine to do. So special camera, destroy. So if it's valid, destroy it. And also in resume camera here, don't forget to make this function have an ampersand in the front. I didn't do that. That will cause build errors. So make sure you make resume camera with the set timer function look like this on the inside. Now we can build again. So now when we play the game, let's go to the animation blueprint again. Might be some errors because we did change a few other things like removing the blueprint events. And let's see what the error is here. And yes, it is because the default camera reference is our base camera BP type, and we were calling freeze camera on it, which still exists, but now it is in code. So we need to call freeze camera. However, you'll notice that we can't do that, and you know why that is. We didn't make these functions ufunction blueprint callable. So freeze camera and resume camera both should be ufunction blueprint callable. And we'll want to launch this again. After that, the game will open. We can give ourselves full super and perform a super move, and everything will be working as expected. We may want to adjust our values now to make it appear where we want, but other than that, it is good to go. Also, in our special camera, we have to swap a few things around in our F rotator that we made for the F transform when we're setting the transform of the special camera. So if we go back to base special camera and look at this F transform F rotator, it actually goes in pitch, in yaw, in roll, but in the editor, we were looking at it as in yaw, in roll, in pitch. So we need to move these values over to the left. So literally just shift them over. So the 30 that was in the Z now is 30 in the Y. Make sure you keep the sign, so if it's negative 30, it should still be negative 30. Just move it over. So Y becomes 30 or negative 30, and Z becomes 0. We also want to do this for our victory camera, so same thing applies here. It is our special camera, and we're moving it to the victory camera location, but we were assuming the wrong values for the rotator again because we copied them from the editor. So instead we need to shift everything over to the left. So 0, 10, negative 80 becomes 10, negative 80, 0. 0, 10, 80 becomes 10, 80, 0. At this point you can relaunch the editor. Then you'll have your super camera and victory camera working as expected, all in our new special camera that's in code. Our entire camera system is now in C++. The only other cleanup that is needed is making some variables for some of these hard-coded numbers, and that will be happening shortly. There will also be more updates for the 3D camera coming out in the 3D Fighter mini-series. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please subscribe. It does more for myself and the channel than anything else you can do, and I really appreciate it. I want to give a huge shout out to my awesome Patreon members, Discord supporters, and YouTube membership supporters. You guys are great. Thank you so much for all the love. I'm very grateful. If you ran into any problems following this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There's a link in the description. I would be happy to help you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.